if there's a successful company, you should tax it, and then when it's struggling, then you should subsidize it. There's a story about that, and that we've watched that over and over again. Is that the oil company, the oil sector here in Alberta was.
We have to interrupt for statements by members, and the honourable member will have 5 minutes of questions and comments after oral questions. Déclaration des députés, l'honorable.
Statements by members. The honourable member for Gatineau. Madam Speaker, it was with sadness that we learned yesterday of the death of Robert Labine, former mayor of Gatineau and great architect of our city. Mr. Labine was mayor during years of growth, and he was responsible for building several infrastructure projects that left their mark on the Gatineau landscape, including the police headquarters and the city hall. Over the years, he continued to contribute to the growth of our region, namely as president of the Outaouais Urban Community and co-chair of the 2010 Jeux du Québec de Gatineau. Mr. Labine helped make Gatineau and our region a dynamic community recognized throughout Quebec. A visionary and passionate about politics, Mr. Labine was close to people and had his community at heart. My thoughts are with his wife, Liette Tremblay, his family, and his loved ones.
Honourable member for Regina Wascana.
Madam Speaker, Ronald McDonald House Charities is looking to expand services for families across Canada. When a child becomes sick, it takes a terrible toll on the whole family. This burden is made so much greater by the fact that hospitals with pediatric services are often located a significant distance from the family's home. This is where RMHC steps in to provide accommodations, meals, peer support, and other services to the entire family while their child is being treated at a nearby hospital. RMHC is seeking federal funding to expand its network of houses across Canada, including a potential location near the Regina General Hospital. On behalf of the people of Regina and Southern Saskatchewan, I would like to salute Ronald McDonald House Charities and encourage the government to support this worthwhile cause. Thank you.
The honourable member for Brampton West.
Madam Speaker, next week is International Development Week. Reducing extreme poverty, advancing gender equality, responding in humanitarian crisis, and increasing access to education and healthcare for the most vulnerable are some of the many global initiatives that Canada has progressed. While the COVID-19 pandemic has changed the lives of Canadians in many ways that we could not have imagined, globally, the pandemic has regressed the advancements made in food security, health, education, and gender equality, to name a few. But Canadians can be rest assured in knowing that our government is steadfast in our approach to end this pandemic, not just only domestically, but globally, all while taking concrete actions towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. I hope my colleagues would join me in thanking all Canadian civil society organizations and Canadians, including public servants, in some of the most challenging places in the world, making a huge difference in the lives of those most vulnerable. Thank you.
The honourable member for Winnipeg Centre.
Madam Speaker, on January 28, 1988, the Supreme Court handed down its landmark judgment in R versus Morgentaler, which held that the abortion provision in the Criminal Code violated a woman's right under Section 7 of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms to security of the person. I wish to take this opportunity to acknowledge some of the powerful women in my riding who advanced the rights of women, including affirming the right to an abortion. Linda Taylor, Susan White, Sadie Rubenfeld, Shelley Blanco, Randa Stewart, Muriel Smith, Myrna Phillips, Wendy Land, Ellen Kruger, and the late Loa Henry. You are icons who serve as some of the greatest mentors in advancing women's rights. We must always continue to fight to affirm that abortion is health care. I know our work is not over. Our fight for reproductive justice continues today. You broke barriers and changed the lives of women across the country. Thank you. I honor your courage.
The honourable député de Sudbury.
The honourable member for Sudbury.
Madam Speaker, in Sudbury, the road to Damascus leads to 106 Beach Street. It's where a Syrian refugee who immigrated to Canada with his family 5 years ago has set up shop. The Karkus family's Damascus Cafe and Bakery offers Mediterranean and Syrian cuisine, eat-in and take-out. The menu is composed of spinach fater, falafel sandwich, tabbouleh salad, and some of the best shawarma in Sudbury. 5 years ago, the Karkus family arrived to a huge welcome party at the Greater Sudbury Airport. Today, the family has grown, has integrated wonderfully into the community, and has become self-supporting. It's now given thanks by giving back generously to the community. When I stopped in recently for takeout, the owner, Hussein, wanted to talk about how we can work together to help feed the homeless people.
In Sudbury, our diversity is not an obstacle to be overcome or a problem to tolerate. It's instead an incredible way to become stronger. Our strength is our multiculturalism.
Hussein brought his family to Sudbury in a proud...
Honourable member for Richmond Centre.
Madam Speaker, it's my pleasure to send best wishes this Lunar New Year to all Canadians, especially to Canadians of Chinese, Korean, and Vietnamese descent. Lunar New Year honors the history and ancient customs of one of the oldest civilizations in the world. This year is the year of the ox. The ox traditionally symbolizes prosperity through hard work. With economic uncertainty, all of us need to work tirelessly, bringing stability to the economy, maintaining jobs, and caring for the most vulnerable. Lunar New Year celebrations are important community events, not only in Richmond and the Lower Mainland, but all over the nation as well. From my family to yours, Happy Lunar New Year! 恭喜發財，新年快樂!
The Honourable Member for Ottawa West Nepean.
Madam Speaker, February is Black History Month when we recognize the contributions of Black Canadians throughout Canada's history. It's also a chance to share the stories of today. I would like to pay tribute to Black youth in my riding who are making their voices heard through the House broadcast of the Britannia Woods Community House. The House podcast is a platform where the authentic voice of young people is expressed. It takes on social issues and provides a forum to share struggles and success stories and to build a sense of community. En ce mois de l'histoire des Noirs.
During Black History Month, it's with honor that I highlight the work by these young Black artists and entrepreneurs who are contributing actively to creating a better world.
Stories of Black Canadians in our past. We must also ask ourselves, what are the stories that future leaders will tell us about today? Let's make sure that it's a story of justice, inclusion, and opportunity. Young people are speaking, Madam Speaker. Let's all take a moment.
The Honourable Member for Markham-Stouffville.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Markham has lost a great community, cultural and spiritual leader. In January, flags were lowered to half-mast at Markham Civic Centre to honour the life and contributions of Amar Eri. He was a cornerstone of Markham's Hindu community, a champion for diversity and inclusion, and a friend to many. President of the Arya Samaj Mandir since 1980 and president of the Vedic Cultural Centre's Board of Directors since 1996, he sat on numerous boards and committees, including the Canadian Federation of Intercultural Friendship. He was a passionate and dedicated community leader who was well-liked and well-respected. He was thoughtful, kind, and gracious, and an inspiration to those around him. He will be missed by friends and family in Canada and around the world. I will miss you too, Amarji. I know these thoughts are shared by my colleague, the member from Markham Thornhill. Our sincere condolences to his family, friends, and the community.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Hard years for Calgary. Harder still was the past year for aviation workers. After the mergers and downsizing for energy companies, WestJet became our largest corporate headquarters with 14,000 employees. 5,700 remain today. The job losses in aviation and related fields are in the tens of thousands with temporary layoffs and furloughs hiding the enormity of the situation. The former finance minister told the aviation industry that the government, quote, had their backs, and quote again, ready to do anything and everything in their power to support those who are suffering. Where is the Liberal government now? Muted and silent. No specific support for aviation workers, only empty promises and damaging policies. Canada's airline and aviation workers deserve better. They need a plan that will secure their jobs, secure the economy, and secure their future. Canada's Conservatives have that plan. More rapid testing, evidence-based quarantining, and financial support for workers in airports, airlines, and aviation.
The Honourable Member for Bourassa. Madam Speaker, 25 years ago, the Honourable Jean Augustine tabled a motion to make February Black History Month. This year also marks the 75th anniversary of the resistance to segregation. Less than a year ago, we saw the tragic death of George Floyd. Since, the Government of Canada has put in place a number of programs to help Black youth, women, entrepreneurs, and Black-led organizations. However, a great deal of work remains to be done in order to fight racism, systemic racism. To this end, I would invite the various levels of government to take tangible action so that all Canadians can fully contribute to a more just, equitable, and above all, inclusive society. Happy Black History Month. The Honourable Member for Beauce. Madam Speaker, on Sunday, many people from the Beauce region will be watching Anthony Auclair in the Super Bowl. Number 82 is an enthusiast who, thanks to his determination, is now playing in the NFL. This is the ultimate reward for hard work and dedication that Anthony has invested since he started with the Trinity Tigers and the St. George Dragons. On Sunday, the entire region and the football community will be proud. And this pride is also felt in all the organizations that have seen him grow. The coaches and teammates who've shared to the highs and lows, and the teachers and members of his family, through all the sacrifices, have been able to motivate and guide him to reach his goals. Anthony, if you only knew how much you inspire young people and the not so young. It's a privilege of playing with a future legend like Tom Brady. I hope you win the Super Bowl, and don't forget that Beauce is with you. And as I would say, go Tampa Bay, go Anthony.
For Surrey Moose Mountain.
Madam Speaker, this last year has been an extremely challenging one, and I would like to recognize the great people of Souris Moose Mountain for their strength and resilience throughout it all. On top of the pandemic, they have now suffered over 5 years of weak Liberal leadership, which has done virtually nothing for the people of Saskatchewan and their communities. Despite this, my constituents have shown who they truly are, hardworking Canadians who want the best for their country. These are the facts. Our energy workers want to get back to work, and they want the option to do so through Canadian pipelines moving Canadian oil. Our farmers and ranchers who have shown incredible environmental stewardship, want credit for that instead of being penalized with a carbon tax. Our small business owners want to know that they are supported by their government, pandemic or not, given how essential they are to the success of our local economies. Madam Speaker, I will continue to fight to secure jobs for the residents of Souris Moose Mountain and to secure our future. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for St. John's East.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Everyone knows the financial circumstances of Newfoundland and Labrador are in rough shape. One reason we share with other oil-producing provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan no equalization payments because of oil revenues and loss of revenue due to oil price collapse and the lack of demand. Now, changes to the fiscal stabilization program were held out by former Finance Minister Bill Morrow as one solution, but all we got was tinkering. The per capita limit was increased, but the maximum for Newfoundland and Labrador is only $90 million, and in Alberta and Saskatchewan, not enough to make a dent in the crisis either. It wasn't retroactive and a flop when it came to the rules. Year-over-year drop in revenue had to reach 50% to qualify, and last year's drop of 46% in Newfoundland and Labrador yielded, you guessed it, nothing. The Liberal government could have helped provinces deal with significant revenue losses with the burden shared by all the people of Canada, like equalization, but it didn't. And Newfoundland and Labrador, as well as Alberta and Saskatchewan, want to know why this government isn't there when it's needed.
L'honorable député de Manicouagan.
The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Madam Speaker, Action Chômage Côte-Nord just launched its awareness campaign on the realities faced by workers in the seasonal industry on the North Shore. I'm proud to support this organization, which is seeking a fair and equitable employment insurance reform for all those who at one time or another need to use the program. Too many workers have to go into debt in order to get through the black hole. The consequences are disastrous for families, businesses, and communities who are getting poorer or even have to leave the region. but we do have the power to make a difference. I would like to reaffirm my will and that of the Bloc Québécois to eliminate the black hole, because the industry that is seasonal, not the workers. I will invite colleagues to view the Action Chômage Côte-Nord capsules that are available online to remind us that as elected officials, our job is to be at the service of workers.
The honourable member for Barrie Innsfield.
I regret that I'm not standing in our symbol of democracy this morning to pay tribute to World War II veteran Wolfe William Solkin. Wolfe passed away at St. Anne's Hospital in Montreal on Wednesday, just days before his 98th birthday. He was the last surviving officer of Canada's Algonquin Regiment, helping to liberate Europe during the Second World War. Nika, Nita, let us lead is the motto of the Algonquin Regiment. And lead, Wolfe did. In 2016, after St. Anne's was transferred from federal to provincial management, Solkin noticed a decline in service, so he took on a class action lawsuit that is still underway. He was fierce, determined, and fearless in his advocacy for veterans' rights and dignity, and he inspired a new generation of veterans to fight for what they've earned. There is a profound sense of loss today among Canada's veterans community. To his wife Louise, sons David and Andrew, daughters Cindy and Suzu, on behalf of a grateful nation, please accept our condolences and sincere thanks for Wolfe's service to our country and to his fellow veterans. Bravo, Zulu.
The honourable member for Egmont.
Madame la Présidente, efforts made by first responders during a recent fire at La Coopérative Les Chez Nous in Wellington, a seniors facility in my Egmont riding. Je tiens à remercier.
I wish to recognize the efforts by first responders during a recent fire at La Coopérative Chez Nous in Wellington, a seniors facility in my Egmont riding.
Residents is extremely frightening. Volunteer firefighters from across the area, in particular the Wellington firefighters, responded quickly, provided comforting words, and placed themselves in harm's way to put out the fire and assist each senior resident to safety. Thank you to all the first responders. Merci beaucoup à tous pour votre dévouement.
Thank you all for your dedication.
Oral questions. Questions orales. L'honorable député de...
The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. 2 months ago to the day here in the House, the Prime Minister stood up and puffed up his chest and said, "We deliver. We are delivering vaccines." That was 2 months ago, Madam Speaker. Today, Canada is ranked 34th, and we're constantly dropping in the rankings. The Economist, which is a prestigious publication, says that most Canadians the vaccinations won't be completed until June 2022. The Honourable Minister.
Madame la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the Honourable Member for his question. And as he knows full well, Canada has negotiated with 7 vaccine manufacturers, 5 of which have had very good results. 2 have already been approved, and we're expecting more. And we'll be receiving doses this week, and we'll receive 6 million by the end of March. And all Canadians wishing to get vaccinated will be able to do so by the end of September. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Madam Speaker, is the problem that for almost 10 days now we haven't received any vaccines. And The Economist is no lightweight. They say it won't be before June 2022 when the vaccinations will be completed. In Canada, less than 3% of people have been vaccinated, and in England it's 15.5%. England and Canada were in the same boat, but the difference is that the Liberals went with a Chinese company that left Canada in the lurch. Why hasn't Canada ensured vaccine deliveries every day? The Honourable Minister. Mr. Parliamentary Secretary, rather. Madam Speaker, this government has been keenly aware of the urgency to get vaccines to all Canadians. We have entered into deals with Moderna and Pfizer, the 2 first vaccines to have been approved, and we will be, from those 2 providers alone, we will get enough vaccines by the end of September to vaccinate the entire Canadian population. Now, we have 3 other vaccines coming down the pipeline. We're awaiting approval. The honourable member for Louis Saint Laurent. Madam Speaker, what was urgent for the government 10 months ago was to enter into a deal with China, and that gave us nothing. And that is why today we still need vaccines. Yesterday, the premiers called on the Prime Minister for transparency. They wanted access to all the documents, the deals with the pharmaceutical developers. Why will the government not release those procurement contracts so we can find out why, for 10 days, the supply has run dry? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, transparency and responsibility, accountability are of prime importance to this government. We will provide the most information, as much information as possible. We have been doing that all through the pandemic, and we have cooperated with the provinces and territories, of course. But given the global competition, fierce competition for vaccines, revealing certain contactual information about specific suppliers could jeopardize our vaccine supply. They could jeopardize our supply chain. We will continue. The Honourable Member for Carleton. Today is not a day for statistics. It's a human tragedy. We have 213,000 families who've lost their paycheck. That's the number of jobs lost. In the U.S., they've added 50,000 new jobs. Our unemployment rate is the highest in the G7, higher than the EU, higher than the UK, higher than the US, and higher than the average of advanced economies.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With respect to the job numbers, I would point out to the member opposite that there is a global pandemic that is impacting different parts of the country and different parts of the world. I noticed that the recent job losses were concentrated in provinces that have been hit very hard by the second wave. The good news is projections from private sector economists continue to suggest that this will be an excellent year for economic growth, with a projected average at 4.4% growth in GDP. What's important is during this time of need, the federal government is going to continue to be there for Canadian households and businesses, no matter what it takes, no matter how long it takes.
The Honourable Member for Carleton.
The member's right. It is a global pandemic. It exists in the United States, which has significantly lower unemployment and added 50,000 jobs last month. It exists in the UK, in Japan, in Germany, across the G7. It exists across the advanced economies, but every single jurisdiction I've just named has lower unemployment than Canada. We've now lost 213,000 jobs in just 1 month, while the rest of the world is returning to work. Why do foreign workers get paychecks and we get credit card debts?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the short-sightedness of the member opposite is absolutely astounding. With great respect, if we wanted to have a short-term uptick in employment rates, we could talk to the premiers and say, don't put in place public health measures that are designed to protect the lives and well-being of the people who live in our communities. But we know that that short-term game would do immeasurable damage to the long-term economic interests of our nation. We are going to advance supports so provinces can do what is right to protect the health and well-being of their residents, and we can prevent economic scarring so we can rebound from this pandemic on the back end stronger than any developed economy in the world.
The Honourable Member for Manicouagan. Madam Speaker, history will remember yesterday as the day everyone realized Canada had failed to secure vaccines on time. That means the pandemic will last a bit longer here than in other places. The government needs to get into solutions mode. The first step is to admit there's a problem. The government has to admit they fell down on the job. They have to start by coming clean with the public. When are they going to release the procurement contracts and a new, more credible vaccination timetable? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, we are in regular discussions with all provinces and territories. We're talking about vaccine deliveries that continue to arrive from Europe. We've entered into deals with 7 manufacturers. 2 are currently supplying vaccines to Canada. As the member knows full well, we will receive 6 million doses in Q1, and we will have enough vaccines from the approved suppliers to vaccinate everyone by the end of September. The honourable member for Manicouagan. No, I don't know that full well because I don't have the calendar. Mr. Speaker, Madam Speaker, the government has to acknowledge its failure. Denial is pointless. They have to immediately tighten up border controls to prevent the spread of the virus. They have to boost health transfers because of the extended state of emergency in our hospitals. They have to boost pensions for seniors whose physical, mental, and financial health are at risk. They have to financially support seasonal industries, arts, tourism, hotels, and fisheries. They have to negotiate to get vaccines produced in the U.S. When are they going to get into solutions mode? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
L'Honorable Secrétaire Parlementaire.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madame
la Présidente.
Madam Speaker, the Bloc would like Canada to fail. They would like us not to succeed. But unfortunately for the Bloc, we are there for all Quebecers and all Canadians. We have deals with most vaccine producers. We were there for those who lost their jobs through the CERB. We've been there for our small and medium-sized businesses to help them get through this with the wage subsidy. We will continue to be there for our seniors. Madam Speaker, I know the Bloc would really like to see us fail, but it won't happen. The honourable member for Rosemont-la-Petite-Patrie. Madam Speaker, our seniors built our society, and we're lucky to have them. Unfortunately, the pandemic has shown that conservative and liberal cuts to health have undermined our healthcare system. Seniors have been left to fend for themselves. Staff are exhausted, and their working conditions are terrible. It's a national shame, and our seniors deserve better. They deserve to grow old in security and safety and dignity. Will the Liberals respond to our request to work with the provinces to guarantee the quality of care for seniors? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
L'Honorable Ministre.
The Honourable Minister.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank my colleague for the question. We are there for seniors, and we have been there since the beginning of the pandemic. We have made sure that we provided financial support through one-time tax-free payments. We made sure that we put additional money into the community so that we could have community supports there to help seniors through this terrible time. And we are making sure that we are there supporting with additional financial funding for healthcare support and in the long-term care sector. Thank you.
The honourable member for Vancouver Kingsway.
The COVID pandemic has shown Canadians the cost of government inaction and neglect. Families have suffered devastating losses of loved ones in long-term care centres across the country. But instead of fixing the problems like they promised, the Liberals continue to underfund health care and protect the profits of big corporations and their wealthy shareholders. Mr. Speaker, nobody should be profiting off the care of our seniors. Will the minister commit to improving Canada's long-term care system now so that residents, their families, and long-term care workers no longer have to suffer?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and I thank my honourable colleague for the question. Madam Speaker, regardless of where they live, those living in long-term care deserve quality care and to be treated with dignity. All providers need to be accountable for protecting those in long-term care. We need to protect those living and working in long-term care. And let me be clear, no one is invincible to this virus. We will continue working closely with provinces and territories to control and prevent infections in these facilities.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Madam Speaker, yesterday the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Procurement said that the Liberals chose, quote, the second best vaccine procurement strategy for Canadians. I'd argue that's a bit of an understatement given that we're 2 million doses short this week. People are dying. We need a path forward. I want the best for Canadians. I want a path to recovery. Why did the Liberals knowingly settle for second best when Canadians deserve far better?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, of course, Canada has done exemplary work in this pandemic, including getting billions of pieces of PPE to provinces and territories, including collaborating on rapid testing with provinces, including procuring from 7 vaccine manufacturers enough doses to vaccinate every Canadian many times over. Just in the vaccines that we have already approved, we have enough doses to vaccinate every Canadian who wishes to have one by the end of September, and 6 million, including those arriving this week in the first quarter of the year.
The honourable member for Calgary Nose Hill.
Well, just to correct my colleague, 0 doses arrived this week. And Canadians shouldn't have to settle for second best. I mean, a year into the pandemic, tools like vaccines, rapid tests, therapeutics are being delivered around the world. And today, international outlets are reporting that 75% of a population receiving 2 doses of a vaccine would be a benchmark for a country achieving herd immunity. When will the government tell Canadians how many need to be vaccinated before unprecedented restrictions the federal Liberals have imposed will be lifted?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And we have taken action for Canadians throughout this crisis. Again, we've said this in the House many times. We've secured the highest numbers of doses per capita of any country in the world with the most diverse portfolio of COVID-19 vaccines. Vaccines are in Canada with more shipments and deliveries confirmed through February and March and ramping up through the spring. We're working the provinces and territories to support them in their responsibilities to deliver vaccines so that every Canadian can get vaccinated when they wish.
Honorable député de Mégantic-l'Érable.
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. Of G7 countries, Canada has spent the most. The deficit could reach $400 billion this year. Canadians are among the least vaccinated in the world, behind the US, the UK, Italy, and Finland. Despite the astronomical spending, the results are pitiful. No vaccines, no recovery, no jobs. Why is this Prime Minister always coming in last? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
That the honourable member would suggest that Canada has spent more to be there for businesses and households as a bad thing. We knew at the beginning of this pandemic that we had the choice to either let households and businesses bear the cost of the economic shutdowns associated with COVID-19, or to be there so we could ensure that families could keep a roof over their head, food on the table, and businesses could keep their workers on the payroll. Mr. Speaker, if I had the opportunity time and time again, I would choose to be there for Canadians, and I'm disappointed to see that the Conservatives would choose not to.
The honourable member for Mégantic-l'Érable. It's a simple question. Why won't the Prime Minister come clean on vaccine supply? Why keep our companies in the dark and force workers to stay home? Without vaccines, no jobs. Small businesses will have to close up shop. Is it too much to ask the Prime Minister for a bit of honesty and less talk, less rhetoric, less prepared lines? Canadians who don't have jobs deserve to know what's going on. Will the Prime Minister admit that his plan isn't working and tell us the whole truth, please? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, it is difficult to take lessons about prepared lines from a member who seems content to read his question off a paper in front of him in the chamber. It is not a prepared line that we stepped up to be there for now 9 million Canadians with CERB. It is not a prepared line that 4.5 million workers still have their jobs because of the wage subsidy. It is not a prepared line that 800,000 businesses have had the emergency business account to help them keep their doors open. With great respect to my friend and colleague opposite, we know that this COVID-19 pandemic comes with an immense cost. The difference between our parties is we knew that the government had a duty to be there for Canadians and households and businesses.
Edmonton Centre.
Madam Speaker, not even a month in, President Joe Biden has stated that his administration considers the Chinese telecom giant Huawei to be a national security threat. Now, 6 years into his role, the Prime Minister has yet to make a decision on Huawei. Will the Prime Minister stand with our international allies and say no to Huawei?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And our government is going to continue to ensure that Canadian networks are kept safe and secure. We're never going to comment on specific companies, and everyone knows that an examination of 5G technologies and review of security and economic considerations is well underway. We're going to carefully weigh these matters with our allies, with our partners, including with the Biden administration, and we're going to make the best decision for Canadians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Edmonton Centre.
Madam Speaker, well, that's just not good enough. Canada is the only allied Five Eyes country without a formal policy to ban or restrict Huawei from operating in Canada. And now it looks like our neighbors down south are ready to make a strong decision on this matter. Why is the government choosing to stand with a company connected to the Chinese government rather than our long-held, strong international allies?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And it is clear that our government recognizes the importance of protecting Canada's telecommunications systems. We're regularly engaging with telecommunications companies, with our allies, with the security infrastructure on a variety of topics just like this. We're not going to publicly discuss advice given by our national security experts, but I can assure you that we're always going to be taking the steps necessary to protect Canadians.
The honourable member for Shefford. Madam Speaker, the federal government has failed to secure vaccines to Quebec on a timely basis. That means the pandemic will last longer here than it should. That's bad news for everyone, especially seniors. They're the ones who would be vaccinated today, but Quebec has had to slow down its campaign in seniors' homes because there are no vaccines to give people shots with. What is the government doing now to ensure that we get vaccines now and not in 6 months for our seniors? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, the Government of Canada signed 7 very sound deals with the interpreter. Can't interpret. There are 2 people speaking at the same time. We will be receiving 6 million doses by the end of Q1. And from approved suppliers, we'll get enough to vaccinate everyone, all Canadians, by the end of September. Now, a member for Shefford. Madam Speaker, we're anxious to see the timetable and the plan because the extension of the pandemic for seniors means that they've already been under lockdown for 11 months without seeing their loved ones. Their physical health is obviously jeopardized. Their mental health declines with isolation, and their financial health because they're among the people who have the least federal support, even though they're the most hard hit by COVID. The paltry amount the government has provided them in benefits so far is not enough. Will they, on an ongoing basis, increase pensions for those 65 and older by $110 a month? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, we deeply care about our seniors who built our society and who are now in homes and long-term care all across Quebec and Canada. We're delighted that they have been the priority for vaccination campaigns. Many of them have already been vaccinated, and more vaccines are to come shortly, and there will be enough vaccines to vaccinate all seniors and Quebecers by the end of September.
Member for Foothills.
Yesterday, McKinsey Consulting agreed to pay nearly $600 million US for its role in fueling the opioid crisis in the United States. For almost a decade, that firm was led by Dominic Barton, the Prime Minister's hand-picked ambassador to China. During that time, McKinsey was advising opioid companies to pay rebates for drug overdoses just to boost the sales of OxyContin. Before naming him to key positions in the Liberal government, was the Prime Minister informed of Mr. Barton's role at McKinsey and the firm's involvement in the opioid crisis?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I thank the honourable member for the question. And as I have said before in the House, Ambassador Barton's role is first and foremost about defending Canadian people's interests and values in China. That includes securing the release of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. That includes being active on every file that is of interest to Canadians in China. Canadians can be proud of the immense amount of effort the ambassador has devoted to all of these objectives. Upon his nomination, Ambassador Barton worked directly with the Ethics Commissioner to set up an ethics screen, and we can continue to be proud of his work in China for Canadians.
Member for Foothills.
It is incredible that the Liberals are defending Dominic Barton and refusing to answer this question. Is it because McKinsey pled guilty to criminal charges for its role in the opioid crisis, a crisis which has claimed the lives of more than 16,000 Canadians? Is it because the provinces have now filed civil lawsuits against the opioid companies that McKinsey advised? Again, yes or no? Don't be afraid to answer this question. Did the Prime Minister have prior knowledge of Mr. Barton's role at McKinsey and the firm's involvement in the opioid crisis?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. And I think with all Canadians, everyone in this House knows about the opioid crisis, which is gripping many parts of our country and causing great turmoil, stress, and death. And we still feel the impacts of Purdue's role in creating the opioid crisis. We're not denying that. This crisis has been felt across our country. Too many communities are impacted. Too many loved ones are left behind. The world wants answers. The world needs answers and should get answers. But while we wait, we will continue to do our part to ensure the health of all Canadians.
Honourable Member for Northumberland, Peterborough South.
Many Canadians who are out of a job turn to this government for help. Unfortunately, the government is letting them down. People who have been denied employment insurance have applied directly for have been directed to apply for CRB. However, due to a technical issue with the CRA's pay system, they were automatically denied. Can the minister please confirm on what day this ridiculous issue will be resolved?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, I can assure the member and everyone in this House that we are making every effort to get this resolved as soon as possible. Understandably, we want to make sure people aren't getting two benefits at the same time, but at the same time, people need to get the benefits that they're entitled to. We're working on this. I can't give the member a date because right now we're just all hands on deck trying to solve this, and I will get back to him with further information. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Essex.
Madam Speaker, my question is to the Minister of Revenue. This government has left parents in my riding in a catch-22. Home with their children, they applied for EI. Their claim was denied. Advised to apply for the Canada Recovery Caregiving Benefit, that application was also denied. But get this, due to an open EI claim. Proof has been provided to CRA, but their database is not able to bypass the error. No more platitudes, no more backpassing. When can these parents expect this desperately needed income support?
Honourable Minister.
Madam Speaker, I can assure the member that CRA and ESDC through Service Canada are working to resolve these issues where people have two different claims in the system. As I said, from an integrity point of view, we want to make sure people aren't getting paid twice. But that small comfort I know to citizens who are waiting for their payments, we're working very hard to resolve this. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Vancouver East.
A 78-year-old woman was fatally injured in a home invasion. The suspect was found at the homeless encampment at Strathcona Park. As the homelessness crisis continues, safety concerns for the campers and residents have escalated to a breaking point. Emergency action is needed to house the campers to end this dire situation. The province has requested 50-50 cost sharing with the federal government to acquire distressed housing or motels as an emergency pandemic measure. It's been over 9 months, still no answer. Will the federal government take immediate action and partner with the province to end this homelessness crisis?
Well, Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, we have prioritized investments in the most vulnerable Canadians, including those who are homeless or experiencing or at risk of experiencing homelessness. Early during the pandemic, we invested $157.5 million to ensure additional dollars. We've also launched the Rapid Housing Initiative, in which the City of Vancouver and the Province of British Columbia will get significant funding to build rapid housing to find permanent solutions to the most vulnerable so that they cannot be on the street and actually have affordable housing options.
Honourable Member for Cowichan, Malahat, Langford.
Madam Speaker, freighter anchorages around southern Vancouver Island and the Gulf Islands were established on traditional and unceded territories without the consent of local First Nations. The area is also being proposed as a national marine conservation area, recognizing its vital marine ecosystem and precious coastal environment. Liberals often like to say that no relationship is more important than that with Indigenous peoples and that they genuinely care about our environment. When will the Minister of Transport honor these commitments and put a stop to the Port of Vancouver using our waters as an overflow industrial parking lot?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, the government's long-term strategy regarding anchorages is aimed at three things: improving the management of anchorages outside of public ports, ensuring the long-term efficient and reliability of the supply chain, and lastly, mitigating environmental and social impacts. The new interim protocols for anchorages was developed in partnership with the Vancouver Fraser Port Authority, with the Pacific Pilotage Authority, and local communities. In fact, the new protocol was instituted to respond to the immediate concerns of those coastal communities. I can assure the honourable member that the well-being of coastal communities is of
the honourable member for Pierrefonds-Dollard.
Madam Speaker, hatred and extremism often target diverse communities. We must stop anyone who seeks to harm others because of their race, religion, or gender. Unfortunately, we continue to see hate manifest in our country. Recently, a Montreal synagogue was vandalized. In my home province of Quebec, we just marked the 4th anniversary of the Quebec City mosque attack. These events remind us of the painful impacts hate can have. Can the Minister of Public Safety let this House know what new measures our government is taking to protect people from extremist violence and hate?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to begin by thanking the honourable member from Pierrefonds-Dollard for his very important question and for his excellent work in standing up to hate and intolerance. Madam Speaker, the listing of terrorist entities is an important legal tool in the fight against terrorism, which makes it clear that Canada will not tolerate such acts of violence. To be listed, an individual or group must meet a strict legal threshold determined by our national security agencies. This week, we added 13 new groups to the list, which includes 4 ideologically motivated violent extremist and white supremacist organizations, in addition to the 2 that were listed for the first time in 2019. Madam Speaker, we will remain vigilant against all of
the honourable member for Medicine Hat Cardston.
Thank you, Speaker. The Canadian Statistics Advisory Council says this Liberal government doesn't have the data required to make the decisions on the pandemic. This is the type of data needed to support public policy decisions that are being made now. Canadians can't trust government decisions when that government doesn't have or won't show what they know, or maybe more accurately, what they don't know. This government has gone from saying they have Canadians' backs to hiding things behind their backs. When will the government provide Canadians with this data and share their plan for recovery?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Sorry, Madam Speaker, my mic was not on. In order for Canadians to benefit from the digital economy, we're going to need to ensure that Canadians have confidence that their data is safe and that they trust their privacy is being respected. And that is exactly why our government is strengthening that trust by ensuring that Canada has a world-leading privacy and data protection system, and that companies that break the rules face severe consequences.
The honourable member for Medicine Hat Cardston is advising the Speaker that that is not an answer to the question asked. Would you? Oh, it was. Could you repeat the question?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. The Canada Statistics Advisory Council says that the Liberal government doesn't have the data required to make decisions on this pandemic. This is the type of data needed to support public policy decisions that they are making right now. Canadians can't trust government decisions when that government doesn't have or won't show what they know, or worse yet, what they don't know. This government has gone from saying they have Canadians' backs to hiding information behind their backs. When will this government provide Canadians with data and share what their recovery plan really is?
The Honourable Leader of the Government in the House.
Madam Speaker, from the beginning of this pandemic, the Government of Canada has relied upon the opinions of experts to guide all of our decisions, whether it's in relation to procurement of vaccines, whether it's in relation to rebuilding our biomanufacturing capacity, whether it's in relation to the manufacturing of PPE. At every point of the way, we've been relying upon Canada's experts and making sure that the data upon which our decisions are made is solid. The Government of Canada shares as much data as possible, and we know that this is important because open science is important, and our government is going to continue to work with our experts and rely upon their opinions as we make our decisions. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, Rideau Lakes.
Across the border and minutes away from my community, U.S. seniors are able to be vaccinated at their convenience. On our side of the border, we're locked down, uncertain about our health, unable to see our families, and many are uncertain about their livelihoods. Lockdowns were supposed to be a temporary measure to buy government's time, but this government has failed to widely deploy rapid tests and vaccines. Our allies are getting vaccines for their most vulnerable, saving lives and allowing lockdowns to end. When will these Liberals do the same?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I just want to correct the member and just give a few facts and figures here. 1.19 million vaccines have been sent to provinces and territories. The member speaks about rapid tests. Almost 19 million rapid tests have been sent to provinces and territories. 6.4 million to Ontario, 3.2 million to Quebec, 1.9 million to Alberta. Madam Speaker, we have delivered rapid tests and we are delivering vaccines. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The honourable member for Kildonan and St. Paul.
Manitoba is ramping up its plans to vaccinate 20,000 people per day by April. 13 vaccine super sites are opening up, as well as doctors' offices and local pharmacies, and all elderly and care homes have received their first dose. Provinces like Manitoba are doing their part to ensure vaccines are delivered to the people. But the province's efforts have been thwarted in part because the Prime Minister can't provide a reliable vaccine shipment schedule. The shipments aren't reliable thanks to poor vaccine contracts negotiated by this Liberal government. Madam Speaker, when are Manitobans getting our next vaccine shipment, and how many doses will we receive? We deserve to know.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, of course, we communicate with provinces like the member's province of Manitoba on a regular basis. We continue to receive vaccine shipments, and people in Manitoba would be receiving them as well. That includes this week. We have doses coming by the end of March, 6 million, in fact, that have already been approved, and enough to vaccinate every Canadian by the end of September. And we're glad that Manitoba and other provinces are ramping up their ability to vaccinate citizens, because as more and more vaccine doses arrive, we will want those deployed as soon as possible.
The Honourable Member for Thornhill.
Madam Speaker, all Canadians should welcome the government's addition of 13 new groups to the Criminal Code terrorist list. But the Liberals once again have failed Canadians, failing to fully ban Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. The IRGC has sponsored terror around the world for decades and is responsible for the destruction of the Ukraine air flight last year that killed 55 Canadians and 30 permanent residents. Madam Speaker, when will the Liberal government finally list the most deadly terror organization in the world today?
Honourable Minister.
I'd like to thank the member opposite for the question and remind him that we are working with respect to that particular regime with all like-minded countries to ensure that Iran is held to account for their support of terrorism. I'd also remind him that the Canadian government has listed 4 of the proxy agencies of the IRCG, including the Quds Force. We will continue to work with our allies to address the activities of the Iranian government in the sponsorship of terrorism, taking all appropriate measures against that regime, and we will continue to use all of the legal tools available to us based on the advice of our national security intelligence officials. Thank you, Madam.
The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Madam Speaker, permanent residents have found themselves in an inhumane situation because of the federal government's incompetence. The government gives families permanent residency and gives them a visa to come to Canada. These people leave their jobs, sell their homes, get on a plane, arrive in Canada, and then they're told by the border services, go back to your country. The Department of Immigration invites them, but once they're here, the Department of Public Safety wants to send them back. When will the two departments speak to each other and fix this unacceptable blundering?
Merci. Madame la Présidente, je remercie ma collègue.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. In order to stop spread of COVID-19 and protect Canadians, we have created measures at the border. We have also implemented exceptions to encourage our economic recovery and reunite families. Anyone who has received a confirmation of permanent residency after the implementation of new measures at the border will receive a letter confirming the situation. We will continue to protect all Canadians' health and safety. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Saint-Jean. Madam Speaker, they get a letter and a visa, but seemingly the left hand doesn't know what the right is doing in this government. You have a department inviting immigrants to come to Canada and another department which tries to get them to go away. In the same way that one department tells people to not travel and another one authorizing discount flights abroad. No one is talking to each other in this government. How come this government is so permissive with people who are of violating its guidelines in order to travel abroad, and so punitive with people who are following its own guidelines and arrive in Canada on invitation. The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, I'd like to thank my colleague for her question. We have been very clear. For Canadian safety and the safety of those arriving in Canada, this is not the time to travel. Border Services agents can refuse entry to anyone who arrives at a port of entry and who doesn't satisfy the requirements. Thank you. The Honourable Member for Lévis-Lobinière. Madam Speaker, Canada gave money to an international organization to distribute vaccines to developing countries. And now we're asking that same organization to give us vaccines from the same fund to compensate for this Prime Minister's failure. Madam Speaker, it's embarrassing, even shameful, for us as proud Canadians. And that is why we want to cast light on the situation. When will this government make the vaccine procurement contracts public? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
If I may just correct the record that the COVAX facility was actually designed to have the buy-in of wealthy countries. It has two tracks, one for self-financing countries to purchase vaccines through COVAX, as well as to make donations. In fact, Canada has done both. We've contributed $220 million to provide vaccines for the developing world, while also purchasing on behalf of Canadians. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Calgary Confederation.
Madam Speaker, the new American administration has stopped the Keystone XL pipeline dead in its tracks, killing thousands of jobs in Alberta. Now Michigan is attempting to shut down Enbridge Line 5, killing thousands of jobs in Ontario. This Liberal government has responded by rolling over and playing dead. All this while energy workers watch foreign oil come into Canada from third world dictators and human rights abusers. What specific action will this Liberal government take to reduce foreign oil imports into Canada this year?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. We take this issue with respect to Line 5 very seriously. Line 5 is vital to our energy security. This line is critical economic and energy security link between Canada and the U.S. It has safely operated for over 65 years. It provides good paying middle-class jobs for the thousands of workers at refineries in Sarnia, Montreal, and Lévis, Quebec. I assure this House we are looking at all our options. Line 5 is a vital pipeline for Canada's energy security, and we fully support it. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
The Honourable Member for Calgary-Shepherd.
Calgary is home to proud entrepreneurs. Those risk takers created WestJet, and after the devastation of our energy sector by malicious Liberal policy actions, it became our largest corporate headquarters. Now WestJet has gone from 14,000 workers to 5,700 due to a lack of support from this Liberal government. Madam Speaker, what is this Liberal government going to do to save and secure aviation and airline jobs?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Nothing.
Madam Speaker, the Honourable Member knows that NAV Canada is an independent organization that operates at an arm's length. My heart goes out to all those who are affected by the current anxiety and uncertainty in this marketplace and under the pandemic. That's why our government has been committed to supporting all Canadians. And I can assure the Honourable Member that any decision NAVS makes that may have an impact on safety and security will be reviewed by Transport Canada. Thank you.
The Honourable Député de Longueuil.
The Honourable Member for Longueuil-Charlemagne. Madam Speaker, since the beginning of the pandemic, many first-line workers throughout the country have seen a sharp increase in domestic violence due to women being isolated at home with their abuser, as well as other additional stress factors caused by the pandemic. On behalf of organizations in my riding, Longueuil-Charlemagne, which help women who are victims of domestic violence, can the Minister tell this House about the status of the National Action Plan Against Gender-Based Violence?
Madame la Présidente, je tiens...
Madam Speaker, I'd like to thank the member for Longueuil-Charlemagne for this important question.
6 million people benefit from the women's organizations our government supports, including 500 organizations we've supported with long-term funding and more than 1,000 we've supported through COVID-19. In Canada, sans violence...
A Canada without gender-based violence is the Canada that we all want. At the beginning of this month, the minister joined her provincial and territorial counterparts to sign a historic declaration.
The honourable member for Dufferin-Caledon.
Mr. Speaker, 2020 was a terribly long year for Canadians, but especially for veterans. In response to my order paper question, Veterans Affairs is showing that 47% of disability applications are taking more than 27 weeks to process. Almost 30% are taking over a year. Mr. Speaker, for a veteran to wait over a year in a pandemic is inexcusable. What does the minister have to say to veterans? Here's a hint. Start with an apology.
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I truly agree that veterans should not have to wait, and that's why we invested near $200 million to hire new staff to speed up the process to ensure veterans receive a faster decision. Veterans should receive their benefits and services they're entitled to in a timely manner, and as I've said many times, this backlog is unacceptable, and we are going to deal with it. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Député de Montmagny-Lillet.
The Honourable Member for Montmagny-Lillet, Kamouraska, Rivière-du-Loup. Madam Speaker, the Montmagny RCM is concerned about cell coverage, which is not improving in the region. We're hearing a lot about 5G, but in places like Sainte-Lucie, Beauregard, La Frontière, and Saint-Fabien-Panay, we don't even have 1G. And we're getting radio silence from the government, even though it managed to get $3.5 billion from the 600 megahertz spectrum auction. It is selling public airwaves. Why is the government not ensuring that regional cell network development is not being sacrificed to the profit of big cities? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. Madam Speaker, our government is the one that has invested the greatest amount in high-speed internet in rural Canada. There is still a lot to be done, it's true. And that is why, in November, the Prime Minister announced a $1.75 billion investment to continue connecting Canadians. Rural Canadians deserve better coverage. We are working on that with the provinces and territories, and we will continue to invest in the months to come. This is very important. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Member for Yellowhead.
Madam Speaker, when the minister announced the results of the 600 megahertz auction last year, she noted the government set-aside policy had created more competition for Canadians. But we now know that set-aside bidders have a poor track record of deploying spectrum in rural communities. There needs to be a use it or lose it condition to ensure spectrum is deployed in rural Canada. Madam Speaker, why won't the government force service providers to deploy spectrum in rural Canada so we can get high-speed internet?
Parliamentary Secretary.
Madam Speaker, our government is taking every single measure in the policy toolbox to ensure that all sorts of investments and all sorts of new infrastructure around telecommunications can get integrated across Canada. Spectrum auction is just one of these sets of policies, and we're working towards a new spectrum auction later on this year. There have been delays due to COVID-19, but we're well aware that this is a very important mechanism to ensure that Canadians have the very best of telecommunications infrastructure across Canada. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Coast of Bay Central, Notre Dame.
Madam Speaker, as the Member of Parliament for Gander, we are proud of our great contributions to international aviation. In particular, the Gander Air Control Centre navigates air traffic in the North Atlantic for both domestic and international carriers. Now, before the pandemic, they safely guided 10 to 12,000 flights per week. Now, with reduced air traffic, most layoffs have been in Gander. We know that air traffic will someday return, but I worry we will lose too many air traffic controllers to even meet our international obligations. Can the Minister please provide information about any discussions with NAV Canada?
Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Let me start off by thanking my colleague for his question. And I know he's a strong voice for his region and for his constituents. And also let me join him in recognizing the talent and the skills that air traffic controllers and other skilled aviation sector workers that are enriching our country. He knows that NAV Canada is an independent organization that plays an important role for our aviation safety. I understand the anxiety that people are feeling today, given the pandemic and the circumstances around it, and we will continue to be there for all Canadians who are negatively impacted by it.
Member for North Island, Powell River.
Madam Speaker, wild salmon are the backbone of the communities that I represent. The minister's Discovery Island decision was announced in my riding with no plan in place, leaving a significant void for the communities that I serve. My office is hearing questions like, what is the plan to rebuild the wild salmon stocks? What is the plan to help workers and businesses in the region? And most importantly, when is the plan coming? Why did the minister not have a transition plan, especially during a pandemic? Shouldn't that have been top of mind?
Honourable Parliamentary Secretary. The Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I want to thank my honourable colleague for the question. I also want to thank her for her advocacy and for continuing to reach out to myself, my team, and have these very important discussions. Madam Speaker, this is a twofold question. First of all, the decision to phase out fish farms in the Discovery Islands was not an easy one to make, but it was made in consultation with the 7 First Nations in that area who had real concerns around aquaculture in their territory. Madam Speaker, we know that this has had impacts, and we are looking at all ways that we can address these concerns. We are going to continue to work with the province of British Columbia, with the industry, and with First Nations and the communities to make sure that we're doing everything we can to address those concerns. Madam Speaker, with regards to
Member for Hastings, Lennox, and Addington.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Canadians have been alarmed by news of travelers returning home only to be welcomed by unknown authorities who refuse to identify themselves and shuttle them into unmarked vehicles on pain of arrest. These officers are refusing to state their names, badge numbers, what organization they belong to, or even where they are forcibly taking Canadian citizens against their will. Does the minister feel this is an appropriate response to the quarantine order? And if not, what will the minister do about this abuse of Canadians' constitutional rights?
The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. And I would remind the member that our most effective measure that we put in place at the borders for protecting the health and safety of Canadians are our quarantine measures and ensuring that everyone who is directed and ordered into quarantine complies with those orders is an important element of our protecting Canadians. We are working very diligently with the police of jurisdiction in every province and territory of this country to ensure that there is compliance with those orders. And of course, it's always the responsibility of those law enforcement officials to respect the Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Madam Speaker, we have great confidence in our police to do their jobs, and we support them in that effort.
This marks the end of oral questions. Nous allons retourner aux affaires courantes.
We will now go to tabling of documents.
Dépôt de projet de loi émanant du gouvernement.
Introduction of government bills. Statements by ministers.
Parliamentary delegations. Presenting reports from committees. The Honourable Member for Hamilton East Stony Creek.
Madam Speaker, I have the honor to present in both official languages the 5th report of the Standing Committee of the Standing Committee on Indigenous and Northern Affairs in relation to Bill C-8, an act to amend the Citizenship Act, Truth and Reconciliation Commission of Canada's Call to Action number 94. The committee has studied the bill and has decided to report the bill back to the House without amendments. Thank you.
Introduction of private members' bills. First reading of Senate public bills. Motion